Welcome to our next session. I'm Thomas Hellman, Professor of Entrepreneurship here at the Saïd Business School, and it's a special pleasure to welcome GB. GB, as he is known, is a serial entrepreneur, somebody who's built several really interesting, fascinating ventures, and it's a real pleasure to be spending some time with him. So welcome to Oxford virtually. It's great to see you, GB.
Thanks, Professor. Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, GB, you have quite a story, and we're all really eager to hear the story. And there's the story of Flutterwave, one of the most exciting companies on the African continent right now. But maybe we should start with your story. This is not your first venture. Maybe you can just give us a brief idea of the journey that brought you to Flutterwave.
Great. Happy to do that. So I started my career as a software engineer, worked for a bunch of companies all over the world, from banks in the UK, like GT Bank in the UK, PayPal as well. Did some work as well for Standard Bank of South Africa, where I spent almost 8 years, almost a decade, working across Africa, helping build technology infrastructure. Then after that, I worked for banks like Sterling Bank in Nigeria. I worked for a bunch of companies as well, like Access Bank, where my last company was acquired. Then from there, I started Flutterwave. So Flutterwave is really the story of Flutterwave is basically looking at payment infrastructure in Africa, looking at the fragmentation of African payments. Africa is so dynamic, right? In the sense that if you go to Kenya, M-Pesa is a default payment type in Kenya, and M-Pesa works beautifully well. But it's not exportable. You can't use M-Pesa in Nigeria, or use M-Pesa in Ghana, or use it in South Africa. In Ghana as well, you've got MTN mobile money. So I saw the problem of the fragmentation. I saw that a lot of wire transfers in Africa today are actually P2M payments, but they are disguised wire transfer, and that's because if you do a wire transfer from Nigeria to Ghana, it goes from Nigeria to New York to Ghana, which in my opinion makes no sense. You lose money, you lose time. If you get on a plane, literally from Lagos to Accra, you get there faster than doing a wire transfer. So part of my goal was to set out to basically defragment that infrastructure and make it simple and make it easy for a small business in Accra in Ghana to sell to somebody in Lagos, Nigeria, or for someone to sell money to family and friend in the UK, or vice versa. And that's what we're trying to be building an African-wide payment infrastructure. So we like to say Africa is not a country, but we make it feel like one at Flutterwave. Thanks.
Well, I mean, that's fascinating. And I'd love to talk a little bit about sort of the early days of Flutterwave. In fact, what led you to start the company? I mean, clearly you understood the tech industry, you had worked on the African continent, but this is a busy space. There are lots of people who are looking at this payment issue. At what point did you sort of have a confidence of saying, now is the right time to start Flutterwave?
Well, I guess it was that moment came when I was working for Standard Bank, and I had a project to help some multinationals from South Africa expand into Africa. And we realized that there was no way they could even pay staff salaries in another country unless via Swift wire transfer. It was expensive, it was tedious. So if you're going to pay somebody on the 30th of the month, they have to start that payment from the 15th, because factoring in every delay that could happen in there was very inefficient, right? And it was expensive. That was one moment where I felt like, you know what, why can't I build the infrastructure that will connect all these amazing payment type in their own right together, right? Make it easy for an Uber, a Microsoft, a Netflix to be able to collect payment from customers anywhere in Africa via one infrastructure, like you do in the US. If you're in the UK or in Europe or in the US, if you have a Visa or MasterCard, you're good to go anywhere you go, right? But in Africa, that's not the case, right? If you go to Kenya, M-Pesa is the main staple, like I said earlier. So that moment was when my customer was trying to expand across Africa, and it became a tough work for them to do because there was just no way they could do that in a simple manner. They had to go to every country, incorporate, have a team on ground, have operations team on ground, finance team on ground. And that basically was a hurdle that I was trying to solve for. And I felt if we could solve that problem, it makes trade easier to do in Africa. It makes payment faster. And payment, as we all know, does not exist in isolation, right? So that is really the core driver behind Flutterwave. Yeah.
Now, if you think of the problem, it's an immense problem. And how did you sort of find your first pilot, your first customer? How did you pick your first country? I mean, I wouldn't know where to start on such a big continent and with so many potential customers. Where did you start that journey to actually build a company?
So, I mean, I chose Nigeria because Nigeria was my last stint. So I chose Nigeria, and also because Nigeria is a big market. If anybody wants to do it in Africa, you don't work with Nigeria, it's almost hard to. So Nigeria was my pretty pilot country. And I started with my previous employer. So Standard Bank were my bank partners, went to my previous employers, Access Bank, Standard Bank, they all pitching in some way till today, right? They are still bank partners. And then the goal was just basically, how do I convince an Uber that, hey, you just launched in Africa, people are trying to pay, but payment was a hassle, we can solve that problem for you, right? So it was just basically trying to use what we already have, like the bank partnerships, to basically convince an enterprise client like Uber to give us a trial. I remember getting on a plane to go to San Francisco to go and pitch Uber and tell them that, hey, we can help you solve this payment problem you have in Nigeria. And they gave us a chance, to do a pilot. That pilot is still on till today, I guess. So it's really great to see that opportunity take off. And that was basically the inflection point of Flutterwave. But it's been a lot of tiny wins across the way, ups and downs, obviously, till we got here. And we're still there. We're still trying to basically continue to stay afloat and scale and, deliver on our promise of making Africa, be that payment infrastructure that you can use through Flutterwave.
Now, when people think of fintech in Africa, they often think sort of a B2C. They think about the end user. You've essentially started with a B2B journey. Was that harder or easier? Why did you go the B2B route?
Well, I mean, Africa is hard. That's a given. It's hard to beat anything in Africa and that's the opportunity as well. That's the opportunity that we're trying to do here. We went to B2B route because we were trying to provide infrastructure for businesses. So that made sense from day one, right? And we also knew that, consumers do not necessarily choose how they want to pay, right? That choice is made for them by who they're paying to most times, right? If you're shopping on Amazon, you don't get to say, Amazon, I want to use M-Pesa to pay. Amazon gives you what they think you should use to pay them, right? So we felt like if we could get the businesses to use Flutterwave, we can then get from there, achieve network effect and scale the business like that. And that's really helped us so far. But beyond that, we also have a consumer product called Barter. It's an app that allows people to do money transfer all over Africa and also to get virtual instant dollar gift cards across the world, right? But the goal really has always been we went to be B2B because of the opportunity that we saw with a lot of these companies who could not get paid across the continent. An average even Oxford student who wants to pay their school fees from Africa, right? That should be easy. They should be able to pay with Naira because that way we can help Oxford solve that problem. So that's the way we think about it. We think about it from the view of how do we make payments simple for the end user via their payments channel, their business that they go to pay for something or buy something or do commerce or do logistics, whatever that channel is, that's what we want to be a Flutterwave.
Now, you started with sort of a payment solution, B2B in Nigeria, but I think the most fascinating part about Flutterwave is how you've been able to scale. And that's, I think, a huge issue. There are many entrepreneurs in Africa, but scaling is really difficult. Can you just sort of give us an idea of how you went beyond Nigeria and what your philosophy was? It's not a coincidence if you're growing at the rate that you're growing.
Yeah, so from day one, we knew Nigeria wasn't the price. It was Africa for us. Our vision of Flutterwave was always Africa. Everything we say in the company, we mention Africa consistently, right? So from day one, it's always been, how do we build an Africa-centric payment system? How do we make all the payment types that are currently fragmented? How do we bundle everything up in one API? How do you make it easy for a global merchant to pay people in Africa and vice versa? So it's always been one payment type, one API, one infrastructure. And we really thought about, how do we also help people scale their business, right? That was one of the driving force. If a business is in Lagos and they're selling to just people in Lagos, we can help them sell to everybody in the world because they can use one API. So from day one, I guess, our North Pole has always been Africa is a price, Africa is a goal, Africa is a focus. We will start from Nigeria, learn from Nigeria, and aggressively expand to every other place in Africa. And that's been the driving force for us. And that has been the pattern and the playbook we've used to expand across Africa. And we're still expanding. Right now, we're in 20 countries. The goal is to cover as much ground as we can this year. COVID gave us a bit of delay, but we're going to basically, continue this year since the world is getting all vaccinated. The goal is just, how do we ensure everywhere in Africa, we make it simple, make it easy for that to happen, right? And it's also a defensive strategy for us as Flutterwave. If we provide payment for Uber, Uber does not want to talk to 10 payment companies across Africa. They want one. So if we don't expand, we really can't keep Uber as a client. We have to really be everywhere to protect our Uber investment. So that's where we see it. So it's really for us both a defensive strategy and also a North Pole thing. Africa is a price for us. Yeah.
Now, you make it sound as if it was so easy, but we know it's not easy. And I mean, companies growing across 20 African countries. I mean, what would you say were the biggest challenges in that expansion?
Well, so, Africa is still a continent, even though we think it's a country from the way we approach it as Flutterwave. It's still a continent, and there are 54 different regulations, 54 different countries with their central bank rules that we have to apply and get approval from. Different rules, different payment types, different cultural nuances that we have to respect. So those are the barriers, but they are also the opportunity as well, because once we do it well, it's hard for it to be replicated, right? And that's why we focus on that very early on. But it's just been a lot of work. At the time, my team were flying from country to country, trying to get this done. Now we've switched to a more, what we'll call a local strategy, where a global yet local, we find people in each of the market we want to expand to and basically work with them to scale the company. So we're basically, learning every day, but it's not been smooth sailing. It's been a lot of learnings across the way, ups and downs, but we've been able to consistently apply the learnings to the next step we're going to take and just basically evolve from there. But it's been a lot of work, but also give us an opportunity to appreciate the diversity of Africa, the immense, depth of the continent, and the opportunities that exist if we can basically build this infrastructure like we've promised to and scale it across the continent.
Now, as you're scaling, obviously you have to hire a lot of talent at all levels of the organization. What do you tell people that why should they work at Flutterwave? What is your sell to potential employees?
My sell is always, come and join me, let's build this monster together. But seriously, so it's just all about being very open and candid with them to say, hey, this is our vision, this is our goal. It's hard. We need you to come and be a rocket fuel to our rocket ship. And showing you exactly how this will work. I'm being very open and so, because a lot of people imagine, Flutterwave is a company of self-starters. We're not a company where we tell you this what to do. We tell you this is where we're going to. You figure out how you're going to get there. That's what we do at Flutterwave pretty much, right? So we're a company of self-starting people. People can take initiative. People who I call mini founders in their own right, who can just basically be the CEO of their own space and drive that aggressively. That's basically what we're trying to do. And so the sell is always, hey, do you want to build a company that we change our payments with PowerPoint in Africa, not just in one country, across the entire continent? That's really the sell. And so far it's been working, I guess.
Well, it's fantastic. Now, one of the really interesting things about Flutterwave is that it's now a sort of a pan-African company, but it's located in the US, and you obviously have a very strong network, having spent some of your career in North America. What do you see as the benefits, and what do you see as some of the challenges of being a US-based company working on the African continent?
So let me correct that. We're an African-based company, not a US-based company.
Okay.
We're Africa-based. Nigeria is our operational HQ for the entire continent, right?
Right.
We've
But a
got
lot
a
of your investors are
yes,
from that's yeah.
yes, totally. So we've got a corporate HQ also in San Francisco, because we've got investors there. But beyond that, we also have customers in the US. We have customers like Uber in the US. We have customers like like Microsoft in the US, right? And the goal behind this is to have a very, very close to our customers. That's what we do. For us, one of our core values is customer focus. So for us, is really how do we ensure we're as close as possible to our customers, right? Um, Beyond that, of course, we have a lot of US investors. A very sizable number of them are in our cap table, and being close to them also helps. But beyond that, we are also going beyond just Africa. Our goal is everywhere. Africa does not exist, in my opinion, in isolation, right? There's a strong Africa network in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in Australia. And the goal is wherever those payments are, we want to be there, right? So, for example, prime remittances for Wise now, across the world. And our goal really is how do we make sure we do that consistently well, from anywhere in the world. So where Africa is our goal and focus, right? Africa does not exist in isolation, and will continue to expand to wherever we think we can connect dots together for Africa.
Now, it's actually a fairly recent phenomenon that African-based companies have managed to raise significant venture capital in the US or in other countries outside of Africa. What did it take to convince investors to get comfortable around your thesis?
Well, I would say showing traction helped, showing vision helped, showing track record also helped, right? All of those factors helped us in raising capital. Also, being a part of Y Combinator in the US also helped us very early on, to be honest. That was a major launchpad for us. Part of YC, part of WordPay FIS Accelerator, those engagement helped us a lot in getting the trust of investors, but also doing the work as well consistently since 2015, 16 till now also helped us to get where we are right now. So it's just delivering our numbers, delivering our core values, delivering our goals as a company, and where there are reasons where we can't, communicating that as well to our investors, letting them know that, hey, we are wrestling on our goal to build a global company from Africa.
Yeah. And then, I mean, since you've actually succeeded in sort of bringing on some top tier US investors, how many conversations do you have with African investors? How much can you bring them into the fold as well?
So initially, not a lot, right? But over time, that has grown, right? We've seen African investors like CRE Ventures. They were one of our earliest backers at Flutterwave. They are purely an African fund, and they've been able to help us in our scale. But you're seeing a lot of African investors right now who are doing amazing work, like venture platforms in Nigeria, Microtraction in Nigeria. There's a bunch of them everywhere right now. It's really amazing seeing how they are scaling, including Berrywood Capital as well, how they are scaling and helping companies, like ours, do that. And things are really getting better. I think right now in Africa, a lot of seed investments are being funded on the continent, which is really impressive compared to when we were starting, right? So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that. And we're very open to, of course, African investors. We are trying to ensure that we build a very well diverse and mixed investor database. Yeah.
Now, that's fabulous. I can see that there's a lot of students who want to join us. And so maybe we can actually bring in some of the students. So maybe I can call on Lily first. And Lily would like to ask you a question. Over to you, Lily.
Thank you. My question is related to government policy and regulation. Wanted to find out from you, what do you think would be the key levers that government policy can pull in order to stimulate the fintech ecosystem?
Thanks, Lily. So the way I say it, policies they can make or mar an industry depending on how they are weighted. It's a very interesting power to have for government. But that said, we've seen how it's been done positively in Nigeria, for example, where we got our license in 2016, right? We just applied and got it. That's an indication of a favorable policy, environment by the Nigerian Central Bank. So we've seen that happen. We've seen how they've supported a bunch of other fintech companies and also scaling across Africa. So that is great, right? And I think that's what we need a lot more of across Africa. That way, we can enable companies like ours and even younger ones to be able to scale and build amazing companies on the continent. So that's my view on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Well, there are several more students who want to ask them. No, Osimhen. Can you hear me, Osimhen? There you are. Lovely to see you. Over to you.
I think you're on mute, Osimhen.
Yeah.
Yes, it happened. Thank you so much. GB, as a fintech startup, I imagine it's important to have as many of your core activities as possible vertically integrated. But when people think of Africa, tech talent is not what comes to mind. How did you take the leap of faith to commit the building of your infrastructure to Nigerian talent?
Thank you so much. So really, it's because of being a part of that ecosystem, right? Seeing the talent first time, working with them. So there was just, I've seen the very best talent in Nigeria, across Africa, working for global companies. So it just makes it was just natural to just tap in that talent network and try to also build as well into it, right? So we've seen a lot of the young folks that joined Flutterwave in 2016 have grown to become leaders in the company right now. They're also growing new leaders, and that cycle continues, right? So Nigeria and Africa at large, we've got some of the best talent ever, right? It's really amazing when you imagine what we've built, right? Flutterwave engineering, for example, is filled with only African engineers, right? And we built everything from scratch by ourselves. We are solving problems every day. We're scaling infrastructure every day, and we've seen that the talent is there. It's just the opportunity that is not there. So how do we ensure we give more opportunity to more of African talent to be able to scale across board? And that's what I think is the solution there. Thanks.
Now, before I go to Sharon, our next students, let me just sort of build on Osimhen's question. And so, you're enthusiastic about the talent base. A lot of companies operating in Africa find, though, that they have to also develop the skills of their employees. And there's a lot of very specific investments, sometimes technical, sometimes managerial. What's your sort of philosophy? How much is it realistic for a small startup, like, a growing but still small company like Flutterwave, to invest in the talent of their own employees?
I think we don't really have a choice, right? We have to invest in our talent to grow and scale to the next level, right? As a growing company, as a young company, we also have to invest in our people to grow together with us, because if we don't do that, the company will outgrow people quickly, right? So that's something that we take very seriously, and a lot of other African startups also do, which is basically investing in talent, right? And over time, as we go bigger and bigger, bringing in more experienced talent as well to help mentor the guys who are there and giving opportunity to the guys who are already there to also scale the business. That's what I think is the way to go. But there's really no choice. You have to invest in talent. There's no other way to do it. Yeah.
And so do you worry that some of these great people are going to leave Flutterwave and start the next company, or how do you handle that one?
It's already happening, and it's going to happen. And that's a good thing, right? I had to come to terms with that, but it's going to happen, right? We've got some of our best talent leaving to join. We have people in Hardyen, in TransferWise, in managing in media companies in Africa. That's great. It's a testament to the work we've done, right? That indeed we've now become a breeding ground for the next talent pipeline. So it's a great thing, in my opinion, right? So they're going to leave, which is great. Hopefully we'll beat our own mafia somewhere, like the paper mafia. So that's my hope.
That's a fantastic attitude. I love that answer. Sharon, maybe we can go to your question next.
Hi. So you mentioned one of the barriers faced is having to deal with, regulators in various countries. And also it appears that there's some pushback from, regulators regarding fintech and digital startups in general. For instance, the Central Bank of Nigeria and the SEC directed some fintechs to be shut down. During the NSARS protest, I know Flutterwave mentioned that the company was using its platform to raise funds to protest. So what are the specific initiatives, or what are the specific things that Flutterwave is doing to deal with this kind of pushback?
Thanks, Sharon. So the way I see this is basically understanding the core job of regulators is very important, right? Their job isn't to innovate. Their job is to ensure there's a stable ecosystem. The payment system is working very well. Consumers are protected. People who've got money in banks are confident that money is safe, right? So expecting regulators to take on the job of innovators, it will be wrong, right? So from where I sit, regulators are trying to understand the ecosystem as well, right? They're trying to understand what new thing is happening. And from what we've seen so far, they're actually very open to collaboration, which is surprising, right? When a new thing is happening, for example, the Nigeria Central Bank just launched a sandbox where you can go and build anything, within a regulatory framework like the UKFCA, right? And they can work with you to make, so that's how they live today by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So I'm seeing a lot of steps by them to try and measure up to what is happening in the market. But that said, I also feel operators like us also have a responsibility to ensure that we carry them along as well as we build technology solutions, right? As we create a new innovative product, there are new risks that are also getting created automatically, right? How do we ensure that we carry them along so they can be able to advise us around, oh, there's a risk we're seeing here. How do you mitigate that risk? And that's what I think is driving that. So the ethos of the regulatory convos in Africa is always around how do you safeguard the mothership, the people, the infrastructure. That is, I think, is a bigger task for them than innovating out of that. So we operators need to engage more and carry them along. And every time we've done that, Flutterwave, we see amazing results where they are giving us ideas. Before COVID, we used to go to their offices to just spend time with them to explain, we have a new product, so what we're trying to do, and they love that approach a lot. So we're seeing that, and I think that is the way to go. And also when we are building things that are not yet defined by the regulation, right? I think our job is also to self-regulate, right? Because there has to be, so we have to basically, send reports to them about what we're doing, what we're seeing. Because if they want to create a policy around that, they will call you because you've been having convos with them on that product. I don't think any regulator is out to kill any innovator. Their job is to ensure that they safeguard the system from the fraudsters who will hide under what we are building. Sometimes, that's why I think it's going. But I think so far it's been great. Understanding it from that perspective helps a lot to understand what is driving the policies, across board. Yeah.
Yeah. And before I go to Samuel, maybe I'll just sort of follow up on Sharon's question. I mean, you mentioned the sandboxes. Now, you also mentioned that you have a Pan-African strategy. So in some sense, you would need to do 20 or 50 sandboxes. Have there been any discussion about doing a sort of a multi-country sandbox, or is that sort of beyond the horizon at this point? Because most of the challenges you have are crossing country boundaries. What would it take in some sense to sort of get a broader perspective on regulatory frameworks?
Yeah, that's very, very correct. Very correct. That's a new idea. We haven't thought about that, but thank you for that. We will explore that because it will be great to basically link up, let's say, Nigerian Central Bank and Kenya Central Bank and say, let's do a joint sandbox that can explore, could be remittances, could be, and explore them in a very safe manner for both countries to learn from that. That would be great. I think both of these countries have sandboxes. It would be great to just facilitate that in intro. We'll get on that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Great. Well, let me go to Samuel next.
Hi, GB. So my question really is not around the regulatory aspect. I think we'll deal a bit on that. But my question is more around the fact that you've worked across several continents, across several sectors. So how did you envisage the culture to be at Flutterwave?
Well, that's a very interesting question. What I learned real quickly is that you can't copy and paste culture, right? You have to just build yours from scratch. So, you know, I mean, I've worked in so many companies, like you mentioned, and there are things that we like from some companies we don't like. So we're trying to pick what we like from where we're coming from and say, what are our core values? I remember in 2019 or 2020, actually, we had to basically change our mission as a company. We said, okay, guys, let's rebuild our mission. We're all here now, right? Whatever GB said 4 years ago doesn't matter anymore. We're all here together. What is our new mission? And we basically spend time thinking about what's important to us, what matters to us as a company. And we arrive at simplifying payment for endless possibilities, right? And we was the entire company that chose that mission. So we're now getting to a point where we're redefining the culture, we're evolving the culture. We're basically trying to build our own culture, the Flutterwave culture. So because some companies will say, hey, we don't require a college degree to get a job in their company. We're saying, okay, what works for us, right? Because we have to define our own culture based on our own reality and our goals, not just jump on the bandwagon and say we have to do that, right? So we are basically learning that every day, and it's still a learning process, I must say. We're trying to build our culture and define our culture and measure the culture properly. So we're constantly evaluating, having reviews. We do town halls every week in the company. We talk about almost everything that we can talk about, allow staff explain and communicate, and we try to listen, right? And just build that process where we can constantly evolve our culture in the right way. So it's still a work in progress, to be honest, right? We're still getting there. Thank you.
Great. I can see there's a question from Sanjidi in the chat, and she's sort of asking if you can just give us an idea of just the size of Flutterwave, the market size, just some basic statistics, but maybe also the vision of where you think this is going to go over the next few years.
So we're still pretty small compared to the market opportunity in Africa. I will say right now, I can say we have the largest payment network in Africa. There's nowhere you want to get paid in Africa we won't help you get paid to their Flutterwave or you want to pay into. And that's obvious by some of the products that you see every day. When you get into an Uber anywhere in Africa, we're right there helping that payment happen for Uber. When you pay for Netflix in Nigeria, we're right there. When you pay for do your Uber Eats, you pay for Office 365, you're creating an airline ticket into Africa, we're somewhere behind the scene making that happen, right? But that said, it's still, I mean, Nigeria is like 150 million, I think, with like 30 million banked. There's still a massive opportunity for growth, right? We're just getting started, if you ask me, right? So what I would say is, as at the moment, we've got the highest number of merchants in Africa. We process the highest number of volume of payments, both by value and count of transactions right now in Africa. But despite that, we're still just barely scratching that surface. Yeah.
Well, one of the elephants in the room, so to speak, is COVID. And I mean, and there are obviously multiple aspects. Sometimes it's a huge challenge for society, but sometimes it's also a push towards further digitalization. How does it look like from Flutterwave's perspective?
Yeah, COVID is very interesting because when the lockdown became effective in Africa, right, Nigeria specifically, we all left the office in, I think it was January or February last year. That's the last time we were all together at Flutterwave. So we've been remote since then till today, right? And we saw the effect of COVID on our friends, our family, our, shops down the street where we live. So we built something called the Flutterwave store. It's like Shopify for Africa. And we built it for merchants or small businesses who had to shut down their store during the lockdown, right? And between then and now, we've gotten over 20,000 SMBs who have signed up and are using Flutterwave store right now, right? And that's really for us an impactful product that we built just in response to COVID. But that said, yes, our volumes grew in that period, but at the same time, we lost clients who were in the travel space. Schools shut down, so there was that impact as well. No events happened in December. If you're African, you know Nigeria and 30 December across Africa. That didn't happen. We lost those volumes. But that said, we saw a lot of growth in e-commerce, in streaming, in logistics, in delivery sector, in gaming. Almost every sector that sector grew. We call them the COVID beneficiary sectors, right? So those sectors grew, and we reallocated resources to focus on those sectors and to just scale them. And that really worked well for us in 2020. But the goal now is as we're coming out of COVID now, we want to capture more market share. We want to really capture what we lost during COVID and scale the business. But yes, COVID was a very interesting period, right? And we're able to scale and survive. Thank you for it. And we didn't lose anybody for it, so I'm very happy about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, today's conference is really about sort of past, present, and future of Africa. So, in some sense, we're having a broad perspective. Now, Flutterwave clearly is sort of a glimpse of the future for Africa. But if I may, I'd like you get your thoughts on the broader sort of tech ecosystem. What future do you see? I mean, clearly you're breaking through an exciting pathway. Where do you see the future of the broader tech ecosystems? And beyond fintech, what might be the next wave that will be relevant in Africa?
So I think I saw a glimpse of that future when I was in China in 2018, right? Where I saw the convergence of payments, commerce, and logistics, right, at scale. We live in that today in the West, where you go to Amazon.com, you can order same-day delivery and you get it, and it's normal. But that's not normal in Nigeria or in Ghana or in Kenya, right? But I think we're going to get there. The future, I think, is in those two other sectors. I mean, we've taken payment and we're going to solve payment, right? So if we can get someone that can solve logistics and solve e-commerce, I think Jumia is doing a good job in e-commerce as well. But if we can get a logistics giant in Africa, we sometimes we ignore the infrastructure that powers Amazon in the UK or in the US, where the Royal Mail works, the USPS just works. All you gotta do is, as an e-commerce founder, build an e-commerce business on that infrastructure, right? And you can scale. In Africa, we don't have that. We don't have that in Nigeria. We don't have that. So we need to build that. So I think the same thing is how we're trying to solve for payment, which wasn't available before. Since 2016, there are over 50 companies who now exist because we exist, right? Companies who are helping people buy stock abroad. Companies who are helping people do multiple things. They can now just take our payment API, plug it in, and be their business, which wasn't there before. So there's so many, ecosystem impacts that one company does on the other company, which is amazing. So and also with the likes of Paystart getting acquired by Stripe, we becoming a unicorn, you are seeing an instant value appreciation for other companies in the ecosystem who can now raise capital a bit more easily because of the seeming success of those other companies. So I think that's really amazing. For me, the convergence really will be when we can have logistics infrastructure, we have e-commerce at scale. That will really be amazing for the entire continent. If that happens, right? I don't know if that happens, when that happens, because I'm sure it's going to happen. When that happens, you will see a lot more companies getting built, getting created, across the continent. So it's really a great time to be African and in Africa right now. So I'm proud of that. Can't wait to see what the future holds. Yeah.
Now, just staying a little bit with that topic, in some of the research that we've done, what we see very strongly is sort of these generational effects, where there's a first generation of pioneers, entrepreneurs, but they then fund the second generation, who fund the third generation, and they provide role models, but they also provide investments. So I know you don't have a lot of spare time, but if you have spare time to invest, would you invest on the African continent? What kind of companies would you be excited by?
Definitely. Whenever I get the opportunity, I do some little angel investing here and there, right? And it's basically every company with an amazing founder with a great vision and a great story, as well as a great understanding of the market, I think they're going to do really well. Even if their business doesn't work, they will pivot to what works. That is what is amazing about it. The resilience of the African founder is amazing. If you know what we go through to make things work every day. So I mean, I'm all for the African founder. So I will definitely invest. I'm already investing, and I'll keep on investing. And I agree with you. It's founders helping founders. That's the way ecosystem can actually grow. So yeah, I mean, that's corner as well. Thank you.
Now, you are without a doubt a role model for the next generation, and both at Oxford and beyond, we have a generation of young people who are considering an entrepreneurial career, but sometimes hesitating. There's maybe the question of whether they should work in a corporate environment or in, consulting or other things. What is your advice to the next generation? Should they start companies? Should they start companies in the US, in the UK, on the African continent? How can you guide that generation?
So I would say, to be very honest, starting a company is hard, right? I missed this when I have a 9 to 5. When I just go at 5 p.m. and I'm like, now I can go enjoy the weekend. But I've lost the opportunity right now, so it's hard, right? But that said, right, we do need, every entrepreneur needs folks like you guys at Oxford, for example. We need the MBAs to come help us to figure out a complex business model, and how we're going to do a go-to-market strategy in a new market. We need that, right? So I think when any path you choose to take, just be great at that path. Both paths work. 9 to 5, you can do amazing 9 to 5, right? Starting a company, if you're convinced that's what works for you, please go for it. That also works. So I don't think there's any pathway that I can say is the way to go. I did 9 to 5 for a long time, for more than a decade, across, and I enjoyed it. And I'm in a startup, I'm also enjoying it. So it works. But I don't want to make it look glamorous that company starting is easy. No, it's not. If you're really sure about it, please go for it. Yeah, and if you're also 9 to 5 in a startup, it's the same thing if you ask me. It's the same. We need people who can think like founders, who can join the company and process the next level. So you always find what works. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that was an amazing insight, and thank you. I love the frankness and the honesty, and it actually resonates very much with the way we think of entrepreneurship as one among many options, but really there are personal career choices, and there are many paths to success. You've shown one of them, so it's been a real pleasure to thank you so much for spending the time. I want to say a big thank you to the students who I think asked excellent question, and not to mention did some amazing work in preparing this session. So GB, on behalf of Oxford Saïd Business School, I just want to say a big thank you. We wish you absolutely the best luck. We'll be watching you, and I'm sure we will meet in person, and this conversation will continue. This is all the time that we have. So on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank you and all the best.
Thanks so much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you.